I'm here at the ruins of the first institution of higher education in the Western world, Plato's Academy in Athens, Greece, to uncover the very beginnings of microtonal music theory in the Western world. The public perception of microtonality in Western culture is usually either A, microtonality tends to happen outside of the West, whether it's Iraqi maqamat, Indonesian gamelan, or Indian Carnatic music, and B, microtonality is for the so-called academic music. It sounds that may be difficult for your average listener to digest. It's your microtonal concertos for florists. It's extended techniques and quarter tones for violin and cups. It's Harry Partch making incredible headway as a composer and theorist, making truly beautiful music, but also music that sounds like this.
Darkness behind the school where you smarten up. You come out with a pride and go look at the good clothes in the shop windows and the swell cars whizzing past Michigan Boulevard and start figuring out how you can get all these things.
The truth of the matter is that microtonality in Western culture is not anything new, esoteric, or unpractical. Today, I'd like to explore this idea through the work of one of Plato's greatest friends and contemporaries, a man by the name of Archytas. From philosophy to ethnomusicology to a scale nearly lost to the annals of history, Archytas's ancient music theory goes so much deeper than you could have ever imagined. Archytas was born here in the Pythagorean settlement of Tara, what is now known as Taranto in modern-day Italy. He was a philosopher, a military strategist, a democratically elected archon, and most importantly, a music theorist.
Archytas was raised in the Pythagorean way of life, which involved physical training as well as education in music, math, science, poetry, philosophy, history, and Archytas was not only a member of this society, but he was a massively productive thinker in his own right, making discoveries in science and philosophy and musicology, and he was a massive influence on both Plato and Aristotle.
This is Jack Bagby, Assistant Professor of Philosophy, Cosmology, and Consciousness at the California Institute of Integral Studies, and huge Archytas nerd.
Archytas' approach to musicology is very close to what we today call ethnomusicology. He wasn't just thinking in the abstract about what is the perfect type of scale or how should we ideally tune things. No, he was out there finding what people were actually doing in practice, and he learned how to describe that mathematically. He provided us with the mathematical language to describe the microtonality that was in use in Greece at the time.
This is one of the scales that Archytas left us. It's called the soft diatonic. It's kind of sort of similar to what we call the diatonic scale today. I mean, it's got 7 notes after all, except the notes that make it up are just a bit different than the ones we encounter in today's 12-tone equally tempered world. One thing that set Archytas apart from his contemporaries was that he wasn't afraid to model his tuning systems with dissonant intervals as well as consonant ones. Pythagoras, for instance, would tune only with what was considered to be at the time consonant intervals, or symphonos. The octave, 2-to-1, also called the antiphonos, the perfect fourth, 4-to-3, and the perfect fifth, 3-to-2. Stacking a bunch of 3-to-2 intervals, this perfect fifth, is what gets you Pythagorean 3-limit tuning, and a consequent spiral of fifths. Archytas builds on the work of Pythagoras, expanding his scale out into a 7-limit, justly intonated tuning system, with the use of dissonant or diaphona intervals. He tunes mostly with alternating fifths and fourths like this, but opts for a septimal whole tone here at the parapate, what would be the second lowest string of our lyre here. This would have been easy for musicians to tune by ear using the seventh harmonic of the note which precedes it in this tuning schematic.
Archytas was extremely practical, and his tuning systems, even the more out there ones, are still highly musical and very intuitive to work with. This makes a lot of sense in terms of Archytas' more musicological approach to theory. Let's take a step outside and see what actual musicians are doing, and then, only then, can we take a step back and start to build a mathematical model which approximates real life to a high degree of fidelity.
This is a meditation in the Archytas diatonic, written and performed by Dr. Bagby and one of his colleagues, Jonathan Kay. A modern approach to something ancient. Focus on the richness and depth and detail inside this sub-minor harmony, but also try and notice how easily and naturally these microtones flow off of the ear. One thing that I find fascinating about the ancient Greeks is how they thought about tonal centers. Today, and in the West in particular, we tend to conceptualize scales linearly. We start at the bottom and sort of work our way up, metaphorically and often literally drawing on the line bounded between two fixed points, which we call home. The ancient Greeks saw things differently. To them, the middle note was the center of gravity in their scales. They called this meze. To Archytas and the people of his day, music was deeply cyclical. Melodies were meant to stretch out in either direction, a perspective which encourages us to go out as well as below before returning home. Balance and symmetry, the interplay of opposites around a fixed core. How does such a simple shift in outlook affect what we do as improvisers, as composers, and as humans with a deep connection to sound? What if music and harmony were so profound and powerful that just the act of studying them could facilitate the insights needed for living a happy and philosophical way of life? Harmony is mathematics that we can sense and feel, a powerful study which once connected everything from astronomy to ethics to politics. To approach life from a plurality of perspectives is to begin to understand the world that Archytas lived in and the music he embodied. And if we look back at his diatonic scale from this ancient perspective, from the meze, we see that the chord at the center of it all, the base expression of this scale and tuning system, yields a septimal or sub-minor triad.
Microtonality is not just a part of Archytas' diatonic genus, it's the foundation of it. And it's about to get much deeper and much more microtonal than this. Studying Archytas here in Greece has been an absolute pleasure, but if I'm being completely honest, I'd be completely lost without my phone to translate, look up directions, and do some quick Googling on terms that I'm unfamiliar with. If you've ever been lost abroad or badly in need of internet without any kind of Wi-Fi hotspot in sight, you'll understand what a difference a local SIM card can make. That's where today's sponsor, Saily, comes in.
Saily is your new travel buddy. It's a simple eSIM app which helps you stay connected in over 200 places around the world.
An eSIM is a digital SIM card that works without having to put anything in your phone.
So no more swapping physical SIMs when you travel.
Just download the app, select a data plan before leaving home, and that's it. Everything is activated the moment you land, and you'll have internet wherever you go.
So no more issues calling an Uber, texting your family that you've landed, or finding your destination on the Maps app.
All while avoiding those exorbitant roaming fees from your carrier back home.
Get an exclusive 15% discount on Saily data plans today. Use code Levi at checkout. Download the Saily app or go to saily.com/Levi.
Thank you to Saily for sponsoring this video. Now back to them sweet, sweet microtones.
If we retune the third and seventh notes in our soft diatonic and shift their harmonic relationships a bit, we can reveal Archytas' strangest scale yet. A sound that was nearly lost to history, the enharmonic.
This scale features two very close quarter tones and a highly unique scalar structure. Today, the word enharmonic has evolved to mean something completely different than it did in ancient times. It no longer refers to a specific tuning or scale, but rather an equivalence convention in where a single identical pitch can be notated in different ways. C sharp and D flat being the same pitch are an example of what we would today call enharmonic notes.
So keep this in mind throughout the rest of the video. When I refer to the enharmonic, I'm specifically referencing how the ancient Greeks thought of it, like a scale, and not the modern notion of equivalent notes.
You won't find too many examples of Archytas' enharmonic in Greek music today. The earliest discussions of the enharmonic in ancient musicology suggest that even to the Greeks, this scale was old.
The enharmonic has not only been lost from a modern perspective, but it appears that even in the classical period, so the time right after Plato and Aristotle, there already had been lost much of the ancient richness of the enharmonic mode, as Aristoxenus, for example, complains.
We know that the enharmonic was used in the Athenian national anthem, so clearly it hadn't disappeared entirely, but it certainly fell out of favor, particularly in modern times. But, you know, it's a really neat sound, so let's do what we can to bring it back. Like any scale, the enharmonic has different modes associated with each of its scale degrees. In casually playing through them, here are some of my favorites. The first mode of the enharmonic offers us a sub-minor second interval as well as a sub-minor sixth sound here. To me, this mode almost feels like some sort of altered Hirajoshi scale or something. The root expression of this mode can either be this suspended triad, or if we fully embrace the microtones, this monstrosity. I strongly recommend embracing the microtones. Sub out the fifth in this chord for a perfect fourth and get something that's just as dramatic, but maybe just a little bit less heavy. That's fun and all, but if you're anything like me, you're probably wondering, what the heck happens if we reroute ourselves on one of this scale's microtones? Enter Mode VII. This mode is surprisingly light and airy, if not a bit of a challenge to tonicize convincingly. The first couple notes of this creates a nice sounding second inversion major seventh chord, which sounds wonderfully lush, but it consequently conditions our modal root to feel more like the fifth of the chord rather than the home note that it probably should sound like. Still, if you're up for the challenge, it's a cool sound to work with. Mode 6 kind of sounds dark, but also adventurous. What this mode does well is its supermajor intervals. We have a supermajor third here, a supermajor sixth here, and a supermajor seventh here. And if we're really intentional with our harmonic choices, we can really leverage this sound to create some really neat, out there, almost alien sounding harmonies. Modern intuition might lead us to think of the enharmonic as a parent scale, which contains two different flavors within it. So instead of a single heptatonic scale, we could engage with it as two independent but related pentatonic scales.
I mean, the microtones of the enharmonic are really, really close to each other. It's not hard to, in the course of a fast-paced melody, mistake one for the other.
So it makes a kind of sense to, in a given situation, use one form of this scale or the other, and avoid using both of them together. One version gives us a third and seventh degree, which is slightly stretched, and the other gives us a version which is slightly compressed.
You know, the enharmonic is such a weird scale. It's so much different than the diatonic scale. A regular diatonic scale doesn't have these giant leaps or very small notes next to each other. It's very tempting when trying to play in the enharmonic to include some of these other diatonic notes. Otherwise, we end up sounding something like a pentatonic scale with some added shimmer to it. But it's pretty clear in the way that theorists talked about it at the time that this was not the intention. Instead, each note of the enharmonic played a role relatively the same. It had a function within the scale in the same way that the notes did in the diatonic scale. So each scale degree had its own unique ingredient to the scale. It wasn't just two versions of the same note that was doing more or less the same function within the melodic sequence.
A huge part of the larger Eastern musical tradition today is to employ modulations. Going from one ajnas to another, modulating between different maqamat are indispensable tools for Eastern music to convey story, emotion, and meaning. The ancient Greeks loved this, and consequently, modulations were a huge part of their music.
Today we can, of course, modulate in many different ways. We can change the key, keep the same pattern, but play it at a different pitch. And we can really go to any frequency, not just the 12-tone pitches. But we can also change the scale, right? So we can stay in the same key and just play different modes, play different scales. And we can also modulate the style, right? You can play the same scales, but give it a different feel. And now, of course, we can do all of these in combination or by themselves. But Archytas adds two other ways we can modulate. We can modulate in genus, which will take us to a completely different scalar structure, something like the enharmonic, but we also have the chromatic genus. But even within each of these, we can modulate between attunements, between soft and tense. And these modulations are all extremely powerful and moving.
Microtonality was not a subgenre or a niche community in ancient Greece. It was just one of the many tools that musicians had to make their music more expressive.
Now, I'm not going to sit here and attempt to pull off some sort of authentic ancient Greek music or anything. I don't have the skills, I don't have the education, I don't have the know-how, I don't even have the instruments. That's, of course, Farya's job. But I think that beyond that, the work of Archytas has a lot of value, particularly in the modern microtonal Western context, and I'd really like to explore that. Both Archytas's diatonic and enharmonic scales can be approximated pretty nicely by 31-tone equal temperament. If we Edo step his diatonic, we get 0, 2, 8, 13, 18, 20, and 26. And if we Edo step Archytas's enharmonic, we get 0, 2, 3, 13, 18, 20, 2021. I recruited long-term friend of the channel and legendary dulcimer player Colin Beasley, as well as Dr. Bagby, to help me close out this video using everything we've learned from Archytas and his tuning systems. We'll start by using the Greek meze, or middle mode, of Archytas's soft diatonic as generated by 31 Ito. And somewhere along the way, we'll modulate in homage to the ancient Greeks, deep into the enharmonic. Something old, something current, and hopefully, something new.
Say, don't go. Some things just are hard to break away. Don't go.
Huge shout out to all of my patrons now on screen for making this video and all of my future videos possible. Also, a big shout out to Dr. Jack Bagby for collaborating with me on this video. He's on YouTube as Socratic Swan Song. If you want to check him out, links will be in the description. If you want a bonus video comparing these ancient Greek scales to modern ones and what we might learn and then apply in our own compositions, consider checking out our Microtonalist tier on Patreon. We have all the resources you'll ever need to get you started on your microtonal journey, including access to the Microtonalist manual, my lecture series on 31 Ito for the modern musician, update videos, and comprehensive production walkthroughs. I'll also be including these drag and drop tuning files for both the enharmonic and the diatonic, as well as their 31 Ito approximations. And I'll throw in all the stems from the music of mine that you heard in this video, alongside all of my regular Patreon sample packs and virtual instruments as well. Come study with me. I make myself available to all of my patrons to answer questions, geek out on music theory, and help foster a community of thriving microtonal music theory nerds. We await you with open arms, and of course, a whole lot of notes.